Uranus is one of the most durable tanks in Mobile Legends, known for his high regeneration and ability to soak up a tremendous amount of damage. His passive, Radiance, allows him to regenerate health over time, making him a difficult hero to kill, especially in extended fights. Every time Uranus takes damage, his passive stacks, increasing his health regeneration rate. This makes Uranus a sustained monster, capable of withstanding heavy punishment from enemies while staying in the fight longer than most other tanks. His first skill, Ionic Edge, deals area of effect damage around Uranus while reducing the movement speed of enemies. This skill is great for poking enemies, zoning them out, and clearing minion waves. It also helps him stick to enemies and disrupt their positioning during team fights. Transcendent Ward, his second skill, is a shield that blocks incoming damage and boosts his movement speed. This skill is essential for both engaging and disengaging from fights, as it provides him with extra survivability and mobility, allowing him to chase down enemies or retreat when necessary. Uranus truly shines in team fights due to his ultimate, Consecration, which purges all crowd control effects and significantly boosts his health regeneration over a short duration. This makes him nearly unkillable for a few seconds, enabling him to dive deep into enemy lines, disrupt their formation, and absorb heavy damage while his team follows up. His ability to regenerate and resist crowd control makes Uranus a top choice for leading engagements or peeling for his backline. When playing Uranus, your main focus is to play aggressively in the early game, bullying enemies in lane and controlling objectives with your sustain. You can often push lanes without fear of being killed, as your health regeneration allows you to retreat, heal up, and come back to the fight quickly. Uranus excels in split pushing because he can absorb tower damage and sustain in long fights. However, Uranus has some weaknesses. He lacks strong crowd control abilities, relying more on his tankiness and poke rather than hard stuns or knockups. This makes him less effective at stopping enemy carries or setting up kills for his team compared to other tanks with heavy CC. Additionally, while Uranus is extremely durable, he can be vulnerable to heroes with high burst damage, as he relies on his regeneration over time rather than instant recovery. Overall, Uranus is a powerful tank who excels at sustaining through damage and disrupting enemy formations. To play him effectively, focus on building durability with items that boost health, defense, and regeneration, such as Oracle, Dominance Ice, and Immortality. Prioritize keeping enemies distracted, zoning them out in team fights, and soaking up damage, so your team can capitalize on your presence. Uranus excels at disruption, lane dominance, and prolonged team fights. Here's how to make the most out of his playstyle. Early game, lanning, and harassment. Uranus is a strong laner due to his ability to clear waves quickly with Ionic Edge and sustain himself with Radiance. In the early game, focus on maintaining lane pressure by constantly poking the enemy with Ionic Edge and zoning them away from minions. Uranus can be played aggressively, as his health regeneration allows him to take trades without much risk of dying. While Uranus lacks strong burst damage, his ability to stay in lane longer than most heroes allows him to deny farm and push his lane effectively. Don't hesitate to engage the enemy, especially under tower dives, as Uranus can take a lot of hits and still come out alive. Additionally, use Transcendent Ward to shield yourself and avoid ganks when necessary. Mid-game, roaming, and objective control. Once Uranus reaches the mid-game, you'll want to focus on roaming and helping your team secure objectives. With his high durability and sustain, Uranus is excellent at controlling map objectives like turtles and turrets. Use your mobility and regeneration to zone enemies away from objectives, or initiate team fights by diving into the enemy team with Transcendent Ward and Ionic Edge. Uranus's role in the mid-game is to soak up as much damage as possible and disrupt the enemy team's positioning. His ultimate, Consecration, is invaluable for surviving in the middle of team fights and tanking damage while your team secures kills. Late game, frontline presence, and team fights. In the late game, Uranus becomes a near-immortal tank if built properly. His passive and ultimate allow him to survive even the most intense team fights, making him an ideal frontliner. In large-scale fights, Uranus should focus on zoning the enemy team, soaking damage, and preventing assassins from reaching your backline. Use Ionic Edge to apply consistent AoE pressure and Transcendent Ward to stay mobile and shield yourself from damage. During this phase of the game, Uranus's main task is to disrupt enemy formations and keep them off balance. Proper use of Consecration will make you incredibly hard to kill, and you'll be able to absorb vast amounts of damage while your team capitalizes on the chaos you create. Core items for Uranus. Oracle. Oracle is one of the most important items for Uranus. This item increases all forms of healing by 30%, which is incredibly synergistic with Uranus's passive, Radiance, and his ultimate, Consecration. Since both these abilities rely heavily on health regeneration, Oracle enhances his sustain in battles, allowing him to heal more rapidly after taking damage. On top of that, Oracle provides extra magic resistance, cooldown reduction, and health regeneration, all of which further improve his tankiness and ability to spam his skills more frequently. This item ensures that Uranus can stay in fights longer and continuously pressure the enemy. Dominance Ice. Dominance Ice is another essential item for Uranus because it provides armor, mana, and a unique passive that reduces nearby enemies' attack speed and movement speed. Since Uranus spends most of the time diving into enemy formations and disrupting their backline, reducing the attack speed of enemy marksmen and fighters makes them less effective. The passive also reduces enemy shield and healing effects, which is particularly useful against sustain-based opponents or high-damage carries. The mana increase allows Uranus to use his skills more frequently, especially since he can run out of mana quickly in prolonged fights. Combined with its armor boost, Dominance Ice makes Uranus much more difficult to kill in both team fights and during solo engagements. Cursed Helmet. Cursed Helmet significantly boosts Uranus's damage while also increasing his durability. This item grants health, making him tankier, and its passive deals magic damage over time to nearby enemies, based on their max health. Since Uranus thrives in extended fights and is often in the middle of the enemy team, this passive allows him to continuously deal damage just by being present in the fight. The more time Uranus spends near enemies, the more damage they take. This item is particularly effective for poking and harassing multiple enemies in team fights or when clearing minion waves. Its mix of health and additional magic damage turns Uranus into a true threat that is hard to ignore. Immortality. Immortality is a must-have for tanks like Uranus, as it grants a second life when he dies. The passive Resurrection revives Uranus with a portion of his health after being eliminated, giving him a chance to rejoin the fight and continue tanking for his team. This makes Uranus even more difficult to deal with, especially in late-game team fights where every death can turn the tide. The item also provides additional armor and health, further enhancing Uranus's ability to absorb damage. The Resurrection often forces the enemy to either waste cooldowns on Uranus or flee, allowing your team to take advantage of the chaos. Athena's Shield. Athena's Shield is essential for reducing the burst damage Uranus takes from mages. It provides magic resistance, health, and an important passive shield that activates when Uranus takes damage. This shield absorbs a significant amount of magic damage, making him much harder to kill, especially when faced with high-damage mages who can burst him down. The shield scales with the game, growing stronger as time passes, which means it becomes even more useful in the late game. Combined with Oracle, Athena's Shield gives Uranus both damage mitigation and enhanced regeneration, making him incredibly resilient against magic-based damage dealers. Alternative and situational items. Brute Force Breastplate grants movement speed, physical defense, and magic defense with every basic attack or skill cast. This can make Uranus even tankier in extended fights and gives him a boost in mobility when diving into or out of fights. Guardian Helmet provides massive health regeneration when Uranus is out of combat, which can further enhance his already impressive ability to heal rapidly when disengaging. Antique Cuirass reduces the physical attack of enemy heroes who hit Uranus, making this item especially useful against physical damage-based heroes like marksmen or fighters. In conclusion, Uranus is a tank that excels in sustainability, map control, and team fight disruption. When played effectively, he can be an unstoppable force that absorbs damage, zones enemies, and leads his team to victory. If you're loving the strategies, guides, and tips to dominate Mobile Legends, don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button now and unlock even more exclusive content, insider tricks, and pro-level gameplay breakdowns. Stay ahead of the competition, level up your skills, and be the first to know about the latest updates and hero guides. Join the squad today. Your path to victory starts here.